Good day, folks, and welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic Live. I'm your host, Neil Johnson, with a huge report for you. So I just have to tell you, I started working on a report on Katie Hobbs and Tim Walz and the fraud that's being investigated in both those instances. And this mushroomed into a much bigger deal as I made some calls as I made some calls to on-the-ground contacts in these areas. So this is really blown up. This is now involving $1.6 trillion in fraud referral sent to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Justice. And apparently they are actually doing something with this, which gets even better. So I've got a special guest to bring onto the show too. But before I get going, got to mention my sponsor, Birch Gold. So the Birch Gold Group, folks, tariffs have thrown the global economy into chaos. We've talked about this. Potential widespread inflation tied to massive supply chain disruptions. Again, I think we come out on the other side of that good, and we need to go through this because asset classes needed to fall because they've appreciated artificially. The one asset class that hasn't done that, of course, is gold and silver. We're looking at minimal gains if you look at it historically. But since Nixon took us out the gold standard, the dollar has lost 87% of its value. So if you're concerned about your savings, I encourage you to have a free consultation with a Birch Gold precious metals specialist. You can reach out to Birch Gold by texting Lumberjack to 989-898. Again, that's text the word Lumberjack to 989-898 to get your free info kit on gold. The first step is you do that, okay? And then you can learn how to use gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. So you can own physical gold and silver that you just buy, or you can actually have a tax-sheltered account. And the experts at Birch Gold can help you with that. Just text Lumberjack to 989-898. Without any further ado, though, I want to bring on my special guest for today, and a good friend of mine, too, Chris Swedzinski.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Chris, feeling a little under the weather. I thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I am. I'm down a little bit. We're trying to recover, but I felt better. So
yes. Well, I'm going to share. So we have two things. I started this off. This whole stream was going to be about Governor Walz and Katie Hobbs. Governor Walz now, and Chris is a legislator here in the state of Minnesota, has dealt with Governor Walz on numerous issues as he has to, being in the legislature. But it started out as a story because we've got $600 million worth of fraud here in Minnesota. Yep. They're looking at $400 million down in Arizona. And you're probably not as attuned to the Arizona fraud. I'm going to share a quick video, folks. Watch Katie's reaction. But it turned into something much bigger as I called sources in Arizona and found out there's an actual criminal referral to the FBI and DOJ for $1.6 trillion. And when I get into this, it's going to blow your mind. But watch this first.
That is all I'm going to say right now.
Governor Hobbs didn't waste words when she was asked about an alleged pay-to-play scandal under investigation. The Attorney General is looking into whether Hobbs improperly gave a campaign donor a lucrative state contract to care for foster children.
Okay, now here's what gets wild. So this is the Sunshine Residential Homes, talking about kids first, all this. Interestingly enough, Chris, what was the biggest fraud in Minnesota dealing with?
They're feeding children that weren't being fed.
Yes. Yeah, well, the children weren't being fed. Then they were spending money to feed the children, and the children still weren't being fed. I guess
that's right.
We could say that. So, but here I want to remind you, the reason at first I was a little distraught about this story to begin with, because just like Keith Ellison isn't going to investigate Tim Walz, Chris Mays in Arizona wasn't going to invest Katie Hobbs. Now, she says she is, but I've got to pull you on a little, I'm going to take you back in time, folks, to just shortly before the election, and Bram Resnick, who's a complete hack down in Arizona as a reporter. Watch this.
Resnick, the political anchor and reporter from our
NBC. Wrong one in, folks. I'm sorry. This is I'm going to remove that from the studio and bring in another one. That was not the right one. I had to fix it because it was on its side. So we got to look for Liz Cheney. Here we go.
Bram Resnick, the political anchor and reporter from our NBC affiliate in Phoenix, KPNX, joins us. Talk about this breaking news regarding Donald Trump's comments that he made about Liz Cheney in Arizona last night. The Attorney General is responding?
Okay, so you guys don't remember this happened just before the last election. Trump made a comment about Liz Cheney actually having to face the bullets like soldiers do. And they took it way out of context and they tried to make it an issue. And this is what Chris Mays did. Listen to this.
That's right. I just spoke to Attorney General Chris Mays about 2 hours ago for the taping of my Sunday show. She told me she just gotten off the phone with her criminal division chief, and she was investigating whether what Donald Trump said about Liz Cheney constituted a death threat under Arizona law.
Yeah, so this is so Chris Mays was going to investigate this, which was obviously just a statement about sending soldiers to war. Dealing with Ukraine, and instead, so Chris Mays wasn't going to investigate this. So at first, I'm kind of like, well, we've got the fraud here in Minnesota, we've got the fraud down there in Arizona, but there's a much larger story behind this, folks. And I want to talk briefly about this, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the known fraud. But this is a criminal referral now to the FBI and DOJ for over $1.6 trillion, not billion. Not 160 billion, nothing, $1.6 trillion from drug cartels, foreign governments, and Canadian banks. And when I asked my source on the phone, I'm like, what do you mean Canadian banks? And he goes, well, that's how this money is being funneled into the US, is through the Canadian banks. He said, this involves massive fraud. He said it is election finance fraud on the grandest scale. And I think many of you probably remember not too long ago, Act Blue executives mysteriously just all of a sudden left Act Blue, which is the campaign finance arm of the Democrat Party. Now there's something called smurfing. And but all these senior officials stepped down from Act Blue. Did you catch this, Chris? You're probably so in the energy policy and everything.
Yeah, not on the stage, no.
So Act Blue, basically, these executives were all stepping down from Act Blue. But it turns out that they are actually, people, I just found this, they're under investigation by the FBI. They're actually under investigation by the FBI. Because smurfing, what they do, Chris, I don't know if you're familiar with this practice, but James O'Keefe exposed this, Project Veritas, and so on. But they basically, you have limits on campaign contributions. Obviously,
yes.
What is the limit on an individual giving to a campaign right now?
At the state level, I think it's $1,000 per person, $2,000 per couple.
Yep.
But then there's on the other side of thing, you have kind of the larger groups, like the partnerships or those political action. Those can be a much larger donations, but they have to be separate spending from the campaigns.
So the issue, and I see Arkansas mentioned, that's one of the states in this investigation, John Gardner. I just say, hey, do me a favor, folks, smash that like button, chat in with where you're from so we can get this stream out there. But so with that being the case, it's a little bit more on the federal level. I think like 4,000 or something, but whatever those numbers are, you can only give that amount to a specific campaign. Like if I want to give Chris money, I'm limited to $1,000 here at state level. So what they do with smurfing is they take this money coming in, apparently we're finding out now, from drug cartels and foreign governments, and then they're dispersing that money out through small donations, and they utilize people. So like, let's just say, Chris, you had given $100 to Tim Walz 3 years ago.
Yep.
Or let's make it longer. Let's make it when he was in Congress. Let's make this like 10 years ago. You gave $100 to Tim Walz. Now he needs money for his initial campaign and then his reelection campaign. So what they do, they're not getting enough donations to his campaign. So they just use your name and they give donations to Tim Walz through your name that you never gave. And it's called smurfing because they have to take these large sums of money that they can't give directly to the campaign and then disperse them out through all these individuals. So it looks like small donations. That's why it's what's the word I'm looking for? Act Blue has been accused, like before when Kamala Harris had this big day of small donors. Well,
that's what
it wasn't small donors is what they're saying. It was all smurf money.
Sure.
So that's how she was able to raise so much money. And so the states involved in this, in their Arizona, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Texas, are all involved in this investigation. But he said actually it's every state, but those are the 4 states that they have focused on right now. But he said every state, your state, Minnesota, Neil, everywhere this is going on right now. Peter Berniger is doing a great job of exposing it in Wisconsin. But so you look at these fraud situations, and so I'm trying to remember. Tim Walz has got a number of them right now. I know there was the
there's feeding our starving children, kind of up and down the line. There's a few daycare ones, up to the tune of $600 to $700 million, Neil. And I think that's the scary part too, is we're just learning the Attorney General was caught on tape talking to some of the folks that wound up being associated with these things. And actually now we find that he's also accepted campaign donations from these types. And so he's been playing flat-footed. He hasn't been aggressive. He understands that these people are his friends, even though they're fraudsters. And at the end of the day, where is the money, right? What are we doing to get that money back? And from the state level, very little, because they have no incentive, because these are their friends. And that's what's the gross part of these situations, is that, well, as long as you're politically connected, as long as that you're friends with the governor, friends with the attorney general, friends with the secretary of state, you will play the game and you will win. And, Minnesotans have seen 6-1, 7-1, 8-1 spending, conservative versus liberal. So I'm not surprised at all that there's things like this going on in the background where, our local GOP activists are going, well, why? How in the world are they raising money like this? What is going on? What's going on? And, it would make sense that there's things like this that are occurring that are quote unquote on paper legal-ish. But in reality, once put the light on, folks will realize that there's A1 big fraud going on, and it needs to stop.
Well, the reality is, so you're out there, Chris, and I know you're good at retail politics. You're out there, you're in the parades, in your district. You're out there meeting with people. You're at the cafes. You're talking to folks. So you do retail politics well. And so everybody thinks, when they go into a race, they're like, well, we just have to do retail politics well. And now we're finding out retail politics isn't the answer. Apparently you need a big money machine of cartels, foreign governments, NGOs, all of these to get money dispersed through Act Blue or what have you back to these campaigns. And it is not just Act Blue. It has been exposed as Win Red too on the national level, people like Mitch McConnell and so on. So this is more smurfing through those arms as well. But it seems like it's all the people that I can tell from what I've seen on all the reports, it's all the uniparty type people. So when you look at the 16 Republican senators who are always crossing the aisle to vote with the Democrats, they're the ones getting the smurfing money on that side. So it's a wild story, but you think, well, what do you do? And
ultimately, here's the interesting thing. Just rewind ourselves and let's say it was President Harris right now. What conversations would be happening right now? We'd be talking probably about legalization of all illegals. We would be talking about, there wouldn't be talk of fraud. There would be talking of throwing people in jail of the opposite party from Democrats. And that's what's the scary part of this is when, you look at Chicago, you look at Illinois politics, you look at New York City, where you have long-term single party control, California included. When things like this arise and it's just shoved underneath the carpet and forgotten about. And, there's nobody to open the books, nobody to shed light on this. And praise the Lord, we have a President Trump and an administration that's going to dig into this stuff, find where the money's at, find who's culpable, and put them in jail. And if Democrats were, like we saw, like they'll take words out of context, construe it into something that it never was for their own political benefit. And, we as Minnesotans and we as Americans, we deserve a lot better from our political system and a lot better from our judiciary system to actually be blind to justice. And I mean that in a real way, saying just because you disagree politically with a politician, at the end of the day, are they right or are they wrong? Are they constitutional or are they not? And if you're using any other judgment, like, well, so-and-so is really nice to me, Well, that has nothing to do with it. And we need to get that stuff out of the way, whether it's a Republican doing bad stuff or a Democrat doing bad stuff. This needs to be held in account.
Well, you know what's really wild, Chris? I just did my earlier story today was on a New Mexico judge that was housing MS-13 gang members, alleged MS-13 gang members, and taking them to the range and sharing guns with them.
Wow.
An actual judge. So literally the ICE had to raid the judge's property to pick up the MS-13 gang member. Okay. So if you guys want that story, it's on my previous upload video. But again, please smash that like, do chat in with where you're from, keep this stream rolling. But I'm going to go back to just exposing a little bit more on this Hobbs report. This is so eerily similar to Minnesota, Chris. You're going to see this with Governor Walz.
Sunshine Residential Homes donated big money to Hobbs and the state Democratic Party and was one of 52 groups to get a pay bump.
So you think about this. Okay, one of 52 groups to get a pay bump. So they're donating to Hobbs's campaign, just like with this feeding our is it feeding our future? Was that what it was in Minnesota?
Something like that. Yeah.
Whatever. You know, I mean, there's a bunch of fraud. Okay. But then you look, and Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, is cavorting with these people and accepting campaign contributions. And if you don't think that's affecting the outcome, you are very naive.
That I would not act in the best interest of Arizona's children in foster care. I have always and will always do what is best for Arizonans. There is an AG investigation. I'm not going to comment further except to say that I look forward to the conclusion of the investigation and finding that we acted in the best interest of Arizonans.
The governor also.
So, and again, she's talking about the investigation by Chris Mays, folks, who won by, what was it? Supposedly won by, I mean, I'm trying to remember the exact number of votes. Somebody from Arizona comment in the chat. Was it like 400, 600 votes? Entire statewide race. Okay. And all those votes out of which county was it?
Maricopa?
Not Maricopa. There was Maricopa had its own issues with the machines going down, not printing. There was this whole thing around that 2022 election in Arizona. But Pima County, that's it. Somebody brought it up. Pima County had big issues. So Fish Slayer
Neil, I'd like it like that interview with the Governor Hobbs there. It'd be fun to have like a CIA facial analyst watch her eye movements and watch her face movements and just see what she's up to from a psychoanalytic side.
Oh yeah, no, like when you watch her, this is one of the things too. There's the she reminds me actually a lot of the Secretary of State out of Colorado, Jenna Griswold. They look woefully unprepared, not able to handle this, and it appears to me, like you watch their body language, that they are completely lying and trying to cover. So we'll let this play a little bit more.
Sounded off on a court ruling that she broke the law when she installed leaders to run key state agencies without the state Senate's approval. Hobbs appointed the directors after she struggled to win their confirmation in the upper chamber. The committee in charge of the governor's nominations was run by one of Hobbs's loudest critics, Republican Senator Jake Hoffman.
This is the chaos that was created by Jake Hoffman's sham committee that he's using to inflict his radical political agenda on Arizonans. This is not what Arizonans want. We're going to make sure that government can continue despite the circus that they've created in the Senate.
Hobbs is appealing the ruling. In response, Hoffman, who leads the Arizona Freedom Caucus, issued a statement today that said, in part, "It's sad that while the Arizona Freedom Caucus and Republicans in the legislature continue to do the hard work of delivering a government that works for every Arizonan, Katie Hobbs instead resorts to throwing around childish insults and playing immature political games."
So this actually, and this reminds me of things going on in Minnesota too, but not even only from the governor, but from people within the Republican caucus, you know, playing immature games. And I think there's a big kind of a fight for the soul of the Republican Party in the state of Minnesota going on right now. Did you want to comment on that at all, Chris?
No, sorry, I'm a little bit out of it, Neil. I'm actually not. I should probably let you go. I am just feeling pretty crummy right now. So,
You're not in a good way, my friend.
yeah. Sorry, Neil. I gotta jump off right now.
All right.
We'll see you
Sounds
later,
good,
buddy.
Chris. Good to
All
talk
right.
to you.
Bye bye.
But folks, we have Chris told me he could only stay on for 10 minutes. He gave me 20, but he is really under the weather right now. But in the Republican Party in Minnesota, there's this big internal feud going on. And what's interesting about it is there's groups that they work off the emotions of people in this state. They work off the emotions of the constituency, and it's a grift. All it is to raise money, and they're not actually there to get anything done. Fish Slayer, I want to thank you for that $10 super chat. Thank you very much for that. I did see that come across. But again, I put no faith, just so you guys understand, I put no faith in Chris Mays conducting a real investigation down there in Arizona. But I do have some faith in Kash Patel. So I know that at this point, and let me just run these numbers by you again. I did talk to Mark Fincham down there in Arizona, and he did say he was very pleased to see that Bondi and Patel have taken the investigation very seriously. This $1.6 trillion is over a decade. Okay, this is over a decade of fraud that's been going on. And this has been investigated. They've got a committee that's working on this and getting all this information submitted to the FBI. But this is actually going forward and moving somewhere. Hopefully, they pull enough information together so that they've got a good Loctite case. But again, this is over $1.6 trillion from drug cartels, foreign governments, Canadian banks. It's election finance fraud on the grandest scale. This is why those Act Blue officials stepped down. They are under investigation right now by the FBI. But let me get into the current fraud with Katie Hobbs. I just want to play this video as well.
Arizona Katie Hobbs is under active investigation for allegations of bribery, fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering as state officials and lawmakers are looking into her administration's financials.
So again, that's a big list, folks. And this is dealing with hundreds of millions, but in total, we're talking across multiple states. We're talking 1.6 trillion. And again, the states that they were focused on with their investigation so far was Arizona, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Texas. Okay. So if you're in those states, and we know there's big problems in Texas right now.
The investigation is based on accusations that Hobbs and other Democrats in the state dished out millions in taxpayer dollars to Sunshine residential homes in exchange for $400,000 in bribes. Maricopa.
Isn't it amazing how cheap they sell us out? $400,000 in bribes, and they're giving up all this money. It just blows my mind.
County investigators have teamed up with the Arizona Auditor General's office to investigate the alleged crimes. In addition, the Arizona legislature has also launched its own investigation, with some lawmakers asking the FBI and the Department of Justice to step in.
See, this is what got me interested at first in the whole FBI and Department of Justice. So I was thinking it applying only to this. And then I'm talking to my sources in Arizona, and they're telling me, actually, this is much bigger. That's being referred to the FBI and DOJ, but we're talking about $1.6 trillion in fraud.
State records show that under Hobbs's oversight as budget director, $339 million in taxpayer funds has gone missing. The missing money was initially reported as a $339 million shortfall, but has since risen to $350 million, raising more red flags for lawmakers. Arizona.
So, it's just reported as a shortfall, folks. Do you get this? Do you get the lunacy of this? $339 million shortfall. Now it's up to $350 million, raising more red flags. They are fleecing you. They are fleecing you. Hey, we got over 2,000 on the stream. Smash that like, drop a hand clap in the chat. Thanks for all the new joiners that are coming on the stream. But you're going to have to go back and watch some of this from before, but I just want to cover too, because I've talked a lot. We've talked more about the fraud but our fraud totals in Minnesota are bigger. Okay, now this is from September 4th, 2024. This was the $250 million, but this has continued to grow. But this is the $250 million COVID-19 relief fraud scheme that occurred on his watch. Now, Tim Walz issued a statement saying he was going in and investigating this. But again, do you think, let me ask the chat this, do you think that Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, is really serious about investigating this? Well, we just found out this last week that the people associated with the organization have been chumming with him and donating to his campaign. Do you honestly believe that Keith Ellison is going to investigate this stuff seriously? Yes or no in the chat. Walz 60, the Democratic vice presidential nominee, was ordered to hand over any documents about the scandal, which involved pandemic relief funds being distributed via the Minnesota Department of Education's Administration of Federal Child Nutrition Programs. Rather than nourishing hungry children, however, the money funded lavish lifestyles, including fancy cars and real estate holdings as far away as Turkey and Kenya, for the operators of the fraudulent Minnesota-based nonprofit Feeding Our Future. So this state agencies were tasked with administering the funds and then submitting reimbursement claims to the USDA. It goes on. At least 70, here's where I want you to get. At least 70 people were initially charged for their involvement in the depraved and brazen gambit, as one prosecutor put it, between April 2020 and January 2022, when the FBI conducted raids of the fake nonprofit. Only 5 have since been convicted in what has since been called the largest COVID-19 fraud scheme in the nation. Now, again, I don't know how these fraud cases that we're currently looking at are relating to the $1.6 trillion that I'm now finding out about spread across multiple states, every state in the nation, folks. This is not, I don't care what state you're in. I know that again, I told you it's focused on Arizona, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas. And these are what you would consider red states. And this is where all this money laundering is going on through Act Blue. And this is why, again, these executives step down. But this is nuts. And I'm going to keep up on this story and continue covering it, because to me, this is right now, I guess it's the biggest story. I think, I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this about the biggest story you've heard lately? $1.6 trillion in fraud through cartels, through foreign governments. This is nuts. Got to give a quick word from our sponsor, Mike Lindell, with the energy drinks, Rev 7. I love these things.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness.
This is a big thing, folks, because I used to always have to take like a little candy or something in the afternoon, because when you work in the creative fields, and I was always in photography, videography, marketing, or doing what I do now, your mind is always active. And so I'd have to take a little sugar because it activates the frontal lobe of your brain. This way you don't need to have sugar because of this drink.
Also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
I think actually right now with promo code Lumberjack, folks, you can save 30%. Go to mypillow.com/lumberjack is the best way to do that. Or if you go to the main page, you can go hit my tile on there. There's 4 tiles on there, one for Steve Bannon, one for Mike Gallagher, one for me, and one for Mike. But anyways, just go to mypillow.com. Actually, call the 800 number. It's the best way to order everything. 1-800-568-2865. Again, 1-800-568-2865. I'm going to close this out with a little Carrie Lake here and what she had to say a little bit ago when some other fraud was found in Arizona.
Your home state of Arizona, this is kind of a theme. Democrat Katie Hobbs there, the governor, reportedly lost $339 million of taxpayer money. I mean, to me, this is just Democrats' callous disregard for hardworking taxpayers' money. How on earth did this happen?
Well, this is what happens when somebody who shouldn't be in the office ends up in the office. And we could go on and on about why and how she ended up there. But the bottom line is she's there. She's incompetent. And it looks like they've overspent. And we are very close to having big parts of our state have to start shutting down because somehow, oops, surprise, overnight they've said, wow, we're about $350 million is missing, gone. We can't account for it. Maybe it was overspent. And we're going to start watching really.
So this, now we know, folks, that this was actually fraud dealing with this organization supposedly to help children, right? And here, I'm going to show you something that just happened in Minnesota. Let's see. I got to get this up and bring it in for you. Share screen. Sorry. Okay, have a producer, then they went in to do all this. Okay, 2 stories out of Minnesota. Let's start with this one. So right now, folks, Carver County is saying that Walz's proposed budget, we had in Minnesota a $16 billion surplus. We now have a $6 billion shortfall. And so what's Walz's answer? Fire the good teachers, not the administration in the schools. Teachers are getting fired. Teachers that are actually doing a good job. I was talking to kids from the school who go work out at the gym. The administration is where the money is wasted in the public schools. But anyways, Carver County, Walz's proposed budget would drive up property taxes. Residents could face double-digit property tax hike in 2026, the county said. That from Alpha News. And here's another one. 2 Minnesota teens survived a head-on crash. The other driver was drunk, a convicted felon, no license, didn't speak English, only had a Guatemalan ID. A judge appointed by Tim Walz let him walk. And this is the crap we deal with when we don't have clean elections. This is the fight of our time, okay? So the reason I love Mike Lindell, and I will always support him, that's why I tell you, go buy some stuff from Mike Lindell. They get the $25 sheets going on and all this, is because he has continued to fight for paper ballots, hand-counted election day voting. This is how you deal with. You also have to get back to smaller precincts, not central count tabulators. Did education, let me ask this of the audience, did the education system improve or degrade when we went to larger school districts, when we went away from smaller schools and brought them all to a central location? Did education improve or was it downgraded? I ask you this question. Okay? Yeah, it degraded. Thank you. Chrono, got it? It degraded. Because anything that gets too big, it's easier to hide the corruption. It's easier to hide the fraud. Okay? Let me see. What? Michelle, that's nuts. 1215 had to pay $542 in Minnesota state taxes? That's crazy. That's crazy. Anyways, folks, thanks so much for joining me today. Remember to subscribe if you're new, and we will see you on the next episode, all right? I will keep up on this story. I'm going to keep in touch with my sources on this because I think this is the biggest story going right now. I really do. All right, we'll see you on the next episode. Peace out.